Welcome back, everyone. Today I have 5 books I think all men should own. The reason why I say own and not read or read is because I think these are 5 books that all men should have on their bookshelf. These are the first books you should buy if you're going to build a library, in my opinion. These are 5 books that I think don't even put them on your bookshelf, put them like by your nightstand or by your bed so you can reread them constantly. These are books that I don't think you should go back to, once every year or whatever. You should probably read these books constantly throughout your life. Come back to them every morning, every night, because there's so much wisdom in these books. And to me, they've helped me the most to live, a good life as a man. The reason why I use the word man too is because mostly men watch my videos, for one, and then for two, statistically speaking, more women buy books than men, more women read than men. So it's more the men that you need to push to go buy books. But that being said, women can garnish just as much from this video as men. There's nothing that I'm saying in this video that's specifically for men. It's for everybody. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's get into this list. I'm going to read a quick quote because I think it's relevant. It's by Cicero. If you have a garden and a library, you have everything you need. And I'm not going to be talking about the gardening part today, but we're going to get into which books I think you should buy first for your library. I think every person should build a library throughout their life. I think it's an important thing to do. So with that all out of the way, let's get into the 5 books I would recommend. The first one I would recommend is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. For those of you who don't know, Marcus was a Roman emperor during the 2nd century AD. He was emperor for, I believe, 20 years. And this book is basically his scribblings, his diary, journal entries. This was never meant to be published. He didn't write this for anybody. These were just thoughts that he had. And this book contains some of the greatest wisdom I've ever come across. It's sorted beautifully because they're scribbles, right? So they're like broken up into the couple sentences or couple paragraphs that they were originally written in. So you can basically pick this up early in the morning or at the end of your night and just read just a couple passages, and then you don't have to worry about finishing a whole chapter or finishing the whole book or whatever. So it's easy. It's very digestible. Like I said, some of the best wisdom I've ever come across. This is a pillar of philosophy. It's probably the main pillar of Stoic philosophy. And men in particular, I think, would gravitate more to the lessons in here. But this is really, everybody should read this book, and you should own it too, because you should come back to these quotes. I'm going to read off a couple quotes actually for you guys. I'll do 3 for every book, just so you guys can hopefully jolt you to go buy these books and own them yourselves. One of my favorite ones is very little is needed to make a happy life. It is within yourself, in your way of thinking. So that's just, he's basically saying like everything you need in your life to make a great life it's not an external pursuit. It's not, like money or wealth or some of these other more superficial things. Everything you need to have a happy life is within yourself. I think that that's a very important message, especially today with social media and all that. So, excellent quote. Another one I really like is, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice. Very similar to, a biblical quote, but awesome advice. That is the best way to get your revenge. If you really want to get back at the person that did you wrong, the best thing to do is to be the opposite of what that person was, to turn the other cheek, to be the bigger person. That really is the best thing to do, because they're just going to spiral down even more. That's going to cause them to hate you and have negative thoughts about you even more. And you're just going to, take the higher path and go upwards. So that's a brilliant quote. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Another really, really deep quote. So many of us, all of us die, but so many of us never truly live. And And that's deep. That cuts deep. Like so many quotes in this book. It's just gold mined after gold mined in here. So, Meditations, that's at my number 5. And number 4, I have another Commander of Men, actually. This book, although is much, much older, I think like 700 years. I mean, we don't know exactly when this book was written, but it's almost 700 years older than this. And that is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Classic book. You'll see this on like any list for what books men should read. This is actually a beautiful copy. It has both the Mandarin and the translated versions. I don't know if my camera will focus on that, but very, very nice copy. I think I picked this up on Amazon for like 20 or 30 bucks. It was actually pretty cheap. But The Art of War, the main thing I would say why you need The Art of War in your life is because you're going to have conflicts with people just living in society, and there is no better manual for dealing with conflicts than The Art of War. You don't have to be a soldier to get wisdom from this. You don't have to be a warrior or a martial artist or anything like that to truly get wisdom from this book. Although this does speak to those types of people a little bit more, I think this is very widely applicable knowledge that will help you get through, conflicts in your life with other people, how to navigate them in a smart and effective way. Now, it's a bit cold. Out of all the books I'm going to show you today, it's probably like the coldest and most blunt, but it is still pretty beautifully written, and there's a lot of knowledge in here as well. Here's a couple quotes again that I really like from The Art of War. So, all warfare is based on deception, which sounds badass when you first hear it, but when you really, really think about it, and you really start to like literally apply that to all of your knowledge of history, then it becomes interesting. You start to look at history through a different light when you truly realize that, yeah, all warfare is based on deception. It can be very terrifying, but yes, that's true, and it's good to know that. Opportunities multiply as they are seized. This one, like I said, very general. Anybody can take this quote. And it's true. Opportunities dwindle as you don't take them. The opportunities won't always be there, but the regret always will be. There's a quote, something like that. This is basically saying the same thing. Like, opportunities will multiply as they are seized. So the more you take opportunities in life, the more doors will open to you. And then those doors will open more doors, and then so on and so forth. And then you can, there's no limit to how high you can go. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Now, this is brilliant because this is a book called The Art of War. It basically could be called The Art of Killing People, be almost the same title, right? So to say that the art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting at all is kind of goes against our traditional notion of what war is and what war should be. But that is, the best possible path. It reminds me a little bit of this quote from a brilliant manga/anime called Vinland Saga, where in the first small spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it or haven't read it yet, but in the very beginning, the dad says to the son something like, "You have no enemies," and I think that's in the same vein as this quote, that you should kind of go through life trying to never get in a fight. Those who keep their sword sheathed will enter the kingdom of heaven, or something like that. I think that's a quote from the Bible that's similar. So that's good knowledge to know. You can be the deadliest man on the planet, but still the best path in life for you is probably to never fight. Yeah. Anyways, on to more Eastern philosophy. This coming from a bit of the opposite perspective, the perspective of the warrior, and that is the Book of Five Rings. This one is, popular, I think, now because Joe Rogan shouted it out so many times. It's only 105 pages. You can crank through this in about an hour. I think it's the shortest book on this list. The Art of War, I don't really know because I have the big, thick copy. I don't know how exactly long this is, but Book of Five Rings, very short, easy read. It was written by Miyamoto Musashi, who was a samurai in feudal Japan. This book was written in 1643, we believe. And yeah, he was in multiple sword duels, I think over 40 of them, which he obviously all won. He was famous for using two swords, which wasn't common at the time. He used two katanas instead of one, which was a reason why he won so many duels. And he was a brilliant philosopher too. And this book, I know I say this all the time. I really overuse this phrase, but it did change my life, like all these books on here. When I read this book, I was pretty young. I think I was, mid-teens, and it changed my perspective on books. Before, I was just reading mostly, Stephen King and comic books, stuff like that. This book really turned me on to philosophy, so I thank this book for that. And Musashi is one of my, I guess, heroes, if I can say that. I named my cat Mia. She's a girl, but I wanted to name her after Miyamoto Musashi anyway, so I named her Miya after the first four letters in Miyamoto. So a little fun fact there, but yeah, I have a weird obsession with Japan too. I love all their art and stuff. Couple quotes from Book of Five Rings that I want to shout out real quick. To know 10,000 things, know one well. Now that one can take some time to really fully not understand, but like realize. It's hard to just hear that and to think it's real, but to really to master 10,000 different things, you learn one thing very well. And this can be hard for people who, are super high in openness. They want to try everything in life. To really barrel down, focus in on one thing will teach you so many things that you couldn't even possibly imagine. I'm trying to think of an example for this, but I think one of the better examples is like going into the military. You learn a lot from going into the military. I think this is one of the most visible things we see in life. Like if you see a guy who's a veteran, you could just tell right away from the way he holds himself, from just right away you can tell that guy was in the army. But what is that also saying? That's saying that like he knows things that I don't. It's because he learned how to hold himself properly, march properly, do workouts properly, survival tips. I mean, how to use a gun. There's so many skills you learn from being in the military. I think that's like somewhat one way of describing this thing. If you master one thing, you'll learn 10,000. So that's a good quote to know. If you wish to control others, you must first control yourself. Now, I don't think you should strive to control other people, but that is true. If you wish to have command, would probably be a better word. If you wish to have command over other people, you need to be able to command yourself first. You could also fit love in there. If you want to love other people, you have to love yourself first. So, good quote there. Do nothing which is of no use. I tell people this all the time because so many of us, including myself, just waste so much time doing things that are useless, watching mind-numbing reality TV shows or rewatching the same show for the 1,000th time. That's really of no use. That's not giving you any new information. You're not learning something from that. If you're not bettering yourself all the time, and if it's of no use, then don't do it. And that's, a pretty black and white perspective, I guess, but that's what you should be striving towards. We all have those days where we don't want to consume anything. We just want to shut our brains off and just put something on and just not think. I understand that, but it is a good quote to keep in mind. And number 2, I'm moving a little bit away from the philosophy. These last 3 books have been kind of all philosophy books. The next one is a novel, but I think it's actually a deeper psychological analysis than any of the philosophy books I've mentioned, and that's Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. This is actually my favorite novel of all time. It's like my number 1 favorite book I've ever read. It's gripping. It's 500 pages, but it's absolutely gripping. Like once the story really kicks off, which doesn't take too long, like it's a page turner, which is awesome because it was written in like 1866. So it was in Russian originally, Dostoevsky, if you didn't put that together, but it was originally in Russian. So you have to memorize a couple long Russian names, but after that barrier, it's super easy to read. You'd be surprised at how easy this is to read. And when you get like halfway through the book and towards the end, you will ask questions like, did this guy actually murder somebody? Because he writes murder so well. This is not to spoil anything. I don't think this is much of a spoiler because it happens pretty early, and it's the whole, it's not really the plot of the book. It's the aftermath that's the plot. But there is a murder that happens pretty early on, and he puts you in the head of the murderer in a way that nobody else has ever done. It's absolutely brilliant. I could talk about this book all day. I probably will do an analysis in the future about this book because it's endlessly brilliant. But he puts you in the mind of somebody who's committed the most evil act, murder, so well that you will ask questions like, did the author actually murder somebody? Why is the author so much in my head? Why does he know all my thoughts? Questions like this will circle your head because it's outstanding how well this is written. I truly believe it's one of the greatest books ever put to paper. And for those reasons, I think everybody should read it because it's captivating, it's gripping, it's good literature, it's a novel, but you can learn so much about psychology reading this book. You learn a lot about the devil, like within, and the devil in the world, and kind of how your shadow self can take over. Not to get too deep into Jungian philosophy here, but just a brilliant, brilliant book. I can't say enough good things about this book and how much I love it. So that's why it's my number 2. I think after, Dostoevsky and his books, I think Brothers Karamazov actually is like the greatest book ever written. That's probably my number 1, but it's hard for me to put it as my favorite because I just love this one so much. But after Dostoevsky, there's not really much that would top it. There is one thing that will. I'll get into it in a second here after I read some quotes. But here's a couple quotes I really, really like from this book that I think are applicable just to everyday life. It takes something more than intelligence to act intelligently. I think that's really, really deep. Being really intelligent, knowing a lot of things, being super knowledgeable, that's not everything in life. That's not going to help. It'll help you to a degree, but it won't help you fully make the right decisions. There's something else that goes into that. And it's something like being a good person, having a moral compass. It's something like that, which I think I'll talk about a bit more in a second here. Taking a new step, uttering a new word is what people fear the most. And damn, is that not true? The first step, the first word, the first engagement with a new thing is always the hardest. I think Musashi also had a quote that like something's hard at first, well, everything is, something like that. But yeah, everything's its hardest when you first start doing it. That's why people fear the first step the most, which is tragic because if more people took that first step, the world would be a better place. But it takes a lot of courage to do that, and reading a book like this can give you that courage. I truly believe it. Pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart. That was one that just resonates with me a lot, and I think it does for most people too. Yeah, just brilliant, brilliant writing. I don't want to give too much away about this book. Just go buy this book and read it. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, so like I teased before, there's only really one thing that I could put above this. It might be a little bit controversial, but I do believe this is the first book that everybody should buy, everybody should have on their shelf. Pound for pound, like dollar for dollar, this is probably the best investment you can make, period, in life. Like, not just with books, like with anything you could buy, the best possible investment you can make is probably buying, in my opinion, is probably buying a religious text. So for my number 1 spot, I have the King James Holy Bible. For other people, this might be the Quran. There's 2 billion Christians, so for those people, it's this one. For the 2 billion Muslims, it's probably the Quran. I have the Quran somewhere upstairs. I just didn't bring it down. But any religious text will do. You want to put the Bhagavad Gita in here, or Confucius, whatever you want to insert here. I don't think Confucius is quite religious, but still. Confucianism, I can never say that, is basically Taoism, which is a religion, so I'll count it. But anyways, Any religious text, I'd put number one. The reason why is because it's the oldest, densest knowledge we have. This is not a book. This is a library. If you haven't figured that out yet, I don't know if you've been living under a rock. This isn't a book written by one person. This is a book written by tons and tons of people and accumulated across centuries. And for that reason, it's literally the densest book I own as far as like knowledge and information. So whether you agree with if there's a God or not, if you're atheist, secular, or if you are religious, or if you're just spiritual, whatever your beliefs are, I think it's important to have a book like this and to read it for yourself and to glean whatever knowledge you can and to come back to it, because nobody's going to read this book and understand it fully on the first read. Like nobody. We've been trying to dissect this book in particular, for about 2,000 years. Other religious texts, sometimes even longer. There's a lot of wisdom in religious texts. I really think that they are the densest books when it comes to wisdom. That's why I think pound for pound, dollar for dollar, this is the best investment you can make. I'll give you guys a couple quotes just from the King James that I personally like. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. This is just a good one to live by. Like if people are pissing you off in life, they get under your skin, they annoy you, the best thing to do is to turn them away with a kind word instead of a grievous one, because it's going to stir things up. It's going to make things worse. No benefit ever comes from fighting fire with fire or to match somebody tit for tat. So it's same as like turning the other cheek. There's a lot of quotes in the Bible that are similar to that one. For as he thinketh in his heart, so he is. Now this is kind of, I think, therefore I am, basically the same thing. Pretty much literally the same thing. But yeah, as you thinketh in your heart, putting brain and heart together there is really brilliant. So you are. So what's inside is what you are. You are what you eat. Another sort of way of saying the same thing. Awesome quote. And this next one's great for martial artists in particular, or anybody who does sports, I guess. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. I guess you can apply that to literally anything. You can apply that to chess. You can apply that to basically any intellectual pursuit. If you want to get better, you have to find not just teammates, not just people who can work with you and bring you up, but you got to find a rival. You got to find somebody who's almost like an enemy, somebody to push you. And iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpen another. That's facts. You got to have that camaraderie in your life to push you upwards. So those are just 3 quotes that I think are pretty general. None of them actually directly reference God at all. So I think quotes like that you can find all throughout this book and apply them to your life without even having any opinion on whether God's real or any of those deeper questions. Those are questions I do not have the time to answer today. But maybe in the future I'll get more into like my religious beliefs and where I'm at with that. But for now, yeah, that's going to be my number one, is probably a religious text. For me, it's the Bible. I was raised Catholic. That's just, and it's in English, so that's just the one that speaks to me the best. But yeah, those are 5 books that I think every man should own. Every man should have these. Like I said, these are the first 5 books I would buy for my library if I was just starting out collecting books. These are the 5 books that I would keep by my nightstand and reread constantly. And I do reread constantly because there's so much wisdom in them and I don't understand them fully. It's going to take me a lifetime to really keep finding the gold in there. So yeah, that's my list for today. If you guys want to see a part 2, if you guys want to see like 5 more books every man should own, I'd be glad to do that. If you guys want to see a library tour, I have a couple bookshelves upstairs. I wouldn't mind showing off, kind of giving you guys some. The reason why I like to do a library tour is not to like show off what I have. I don't think it's that impressive. It's not that big. I've seen many larger personal libraries, but it's more so to like show you guys kind of A, what I'm interested in, and B, what you guys can strive to, and maybe some book recommendations too. So if you guys want to see a video like that, I'd be happy to do them. Other than that, let me know in the comments if you guys have any suggestions of books that should have made this list or should make the part 2. And let me know if you guys have read any of these books and what you guys thought about them. I'd love to hear from you guys, especially Crime and Punishment. I want to know if anybody else out there is as deeply connected to that book as I am, because, man, I'm getting my one buddy to read it for the first time right now, and it's exciting watching him slowly go through it. Yeah, brilliant books. Go buy them, go read them, go reread them. And thank you guys for watching. As always, like and subscribe. Helps boost this channel in the algorithm. Yeah, thank you guys for watching, as always. Catch you in the next one. Peace.